No. I didn't hear the energy. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I see a lot of familiar faces here, but for those that I have not met, my name is Jerry Dawes. I'm a member of the board of directors for one of the host organizations for this evening's event, the Caribbean American Society of New York, CASONY for short. You're all looking beautiful. Why don't you all give yourselves a round of applause? So before we get further into the program, I would love for Kristen from the Center of Fiction to come up and say a few words. Our host. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kristen Henley. I'm the managing director here at the Center for Fiction, and we're so happy to be able to host you all tonight. I think there's some materials out about the center, but if you're curious, we're about a 200-year-old organization founded as a private library, which we still have. And but we do a lot more now. We have events, we have book groups. We have a book group meeting in the other room, and we do things for kids. So please go to our website, check us out, think about joining. And I'd also just like to say all of this is because of the wonderful Tanya Pessoa, who's been such an amazing part of our team here. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Kristen. How about another round of applause for Kristen? So again, you all had choices this evening. You coming out and being
Go ahead in prayer. Father, we thank you for this gathering. We thank you for each and every one that came out tonight, near and far. We pray that in their going and those that are on their way. We pray that in their going they are safe and in their coming they are also. We thank you for this gathering of your people, God. We thank you for bringing us together because this is so important. And I just want everyone that has something to say on their hearts, say all the things that needs to be said. I pray that this grows into something like huge, exactly where you want it to go, because anything that has you in it will definitely prosper. We thank you. We pray that all that needs to be said is said, and we get home safe. We bless the food in advance before anyone has it. May it be a nourishment to our bodies. And thank you again for just bringing us together. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, so it's me again. Well, singing. Listen, I'm multitasking. I'm ambidextrous tonight. All right. So I was asked to sing the Black National Anthem. So I hope you guys, if you guys want to sing along with me, you are welcome to do so. You can stand, yes. They stand for the others. So definitely can stand for this one. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the presence has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day.
Keisha, thank you very much. How about another round of applause? So I just want to give you an agenda, so to speak, for what we are planning to do tonight. We have a lot of talent. We have a lot of champions in our community. And it's a real pleasure for me to be here because we're going to be hearing from some of the champions in our community tonight. And so, for those of you who registered via the website, you can go there and take a look at the bio of some of the speakers that we've invited to grace our presence tonight. But before I bring the speakers up, I do want to bring up Horace Davis, the president of the Caribbean American Society of New York, one of the host organizations for this evening's event. There was some brainstorming that went on behind the scenes on conceptualizing tonight's event, and Horace was a key part of that. And so, Horace, I'd love for you to come up and just share with all of us some of the thoughts and some of the thinking that went into putting on tonight's event. Horace?
Thank you so much, Jerry. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Awesome. So Jerry talked about the planning of this event and what went into it. And one thing that I will start by saying is, by virtue of the fact that this is Caribbean Heritage Month, and we are the Caribbean American Society of New York, to not have a celebration of our culture that helps to bring us together would just not be acceptable. And so with that, we had a conversation with Ms. Tanya from Center for Fiction and talked about utilizing this space as an opportunity to bring the community together. And it was actually her who said and came up with this idea of really focusing in on one Caribbean. Because at the end of the day, that is how we will maximize our influence when we come together as a people, as one Caribbean community. And part of that, and what you'll see in terms of the speakers here, is we're not only representing English, Spanish, and French-speaking Caribbean, but as we come together as a community, we want to ensure that we're not creating and developing other silos from our African brothers and sisters and others. And so I'm from the state of Show Me, and that is one of the reasons why we have the agenda that we have. Now, one thing that Jerry did want me to get started with, because many may not be familiar with CASONY, the Caribbean American Society of New York. So I just wanted to, at a very high level, speak to the organization. We've been around for quite some time. In 2011, we became a nonprofit 501c3 organization. The overarching mission of CASONY is to build and cultivate a stronger sense of pride within the Caribbean American community. Now, I could speak a lot about what we're represent as an organization, but I'm going to focus in on our four main objectives and at a very high level. The first is business, to support those who support our community as far as business goes, and that's workforce development. We've got to ensure that we're supporting business owners. We're supporting individuals that are providing training and opportunities for our young people. This is so much of what we need to do as a community if we're to be sustainable. So business is one of the first pillars. Number two is a focus on education. And this education really is like K to career and beyond. But at the same time, there is a focus on our children, specifically kindergarten through 8th grade, and STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. as much as education is important, we want to ensure that the education that our children and our community receives is aligned with the careers of the future. And that is one of the reasons why we really put a great emphasis on STEM and on education and getting our kids very early so they're comfortable with it and they don't feel by the time they get to high school that they need to shy away from it. The third pillar, and I think it speaks to why we're here, is networking. Coming together as a community, and you'll see the wealth of experience that we have, not just in terms of the speakers, but as you meet and greet and share information with those in the room, you will really see the wealth of gifts that we have as a community. So networking is number 3. And last, but surely not least, is to engage in the development of policies, regulation, legislation, those forward-looking things that we've got to focus in on. And it's interesting that we're getting together today just based on what has happened and what has come out of the Supreme Court. Okay? We have got to be at the table and we have got to ensure we are taking care of our civic duty to ensure that we are represented. And the people that look like us also represent us. And if we're not establishing what our interests are and what it is that we're looking for, we will forever, what is it they say? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu or something like that? Yeah. Okay. So I will leave it at that. I just wanted to give just some sense of what CASONY is all about. And bear with me just 1 second, because I'll say what we're not. And this is what I think makes it so powerful, is that we really are in a position to be able to collaborate with so many organizations and so many groups, because what we're looking to do is really focus in on the influence that we can and should have. We're starting here in New York City, but this is a city statewide initiative. Okay, 5 of the top 9 immigrant countries in New York City have one thing in common, and it doesn't include Puerto Rico, and that is that we are Caribbean islands. And if we come together, just in terms of that, just think about the influence that we can and should have. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Jerry so we can get into the program and the amazing speakers that we have.
Well, thank you very much, Horace. And a lot of what he talked about is actually can be found on the CASONY website, www.casony.org. There will be additional events, additional programs that we put together in the future, so please stay tuned. All right, so what I'd love to do now is bring up our first speaker, and that's Dr. Ken Irish Bramble, Professor of Social and Behavioral Sciences at Medgar Evers College, an author, an activist, someone that I am just so impressed and very proud of. Dr. Bramble, come on.
Hello, everyone. First, allow me to praise Mr. Davis and his other colleagues in the Caribbean American Society of New York for organizing this event and for his leadership and his vision in terms of trying to bring together the Caribbean community under this theme of One Caribbean. And so you should be applauded, I think, for that. So, as mentioned, yes, I am an associate professor at Medgar Evers College, but that's actually not the capacity in which I'm here this evening. I am also the executive director of the Caribbean Research Center at Medgar Evers College, which some of you may be familiar with. For those of you who are not, the Caribbean Research Center, or City. Our primary mission is to foster a deeper and interdisciplinary understanding of the Caribbean American experience. But over the years, we've expanded our mission and the work that we do way beyond that simple expression. Right? And under the leadership of Dr. J.A. George Irish, we expanded to develop youth programs, to provide immigration services, to develop a publishing program which supported young Caribbean American, but not necessarily young, but less well-known Caribbean American authors, writers, and creatives in terms of getting their work published. We hosted conferences, we developed policy papers, and also engaged in sustainable development work in the region and in Central America. As Dr. Irish approached retirement and later passed, the center reduced its footprint a little bit, and I have recently been tasked with the responsibility of rebuilding and expanding and carrying on the work that he started, which is no small feat, as you can imagine. Now, in order to do that, of course, the center has always sought to work closely with other Caribbean American organizations and community partners, because obviously we can't do all of that work and try to fulfill that mission on our own. And so we are very excited about the possibility of and the possibilities engaged in working with the Caribbean American Society of New York and with all of you in the various organizations that you represent. I'm not going to take up a lot of time this evening at the mic, but I did want to piggyback a little bit on something that Horace started talking about. So back in the 1990s, we applauded the idea of, the experience of having Dr. Eula Clark, who was also pivotal in terms of working with us at the center, becoming the first Caribbean American woman in city council. And, as we look back 20 years later, not only do we have, Caribbean American representation in city council, but we're seeing growing Caribbean American representation. And I'm using a very broad definition of Caribbean American, as Horace did, not just in city council, but increasingly in the state legislature. We're seeing it on the national level, both in Congress and even in the White House, right? And while that is to be applauded, that's a great thing that we've accomplished in terms of getting the Supreme Court. We have representation there too. But one of the things that's missing, and it was sort of highlighted for me this last week. So this last week, a group of us were invited down to Washington, D.C. for the legislative week of the National Caribbean American Heritage Month. And so you had Caribbean leaders from across the country who all came together, and we all headed down to Washington, D.C. to engage with our various representatives. And we were even hosted for the first time at the White House, right, by invitation of none other than Kamala Harris. Now that sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So say something. It sounds good, right? Come on. Now, that sounds like, as Horace implied a minute ago, that we are finding our seats at the table. There's something missing. See, because if having a seat at the table is only part of the equation, and when you have a seat at the table but no clear agenda, then all that you've really accomplished is symbolism and tokenism. I'm going to say that again, right? If you have a seat at the table, but you have no clear agenda to push, Horace mentioned, the reversal of affirmative action, and we've had the reversal of Roe v. Wade. Those things aren't coincidental. Those things are not coincidental at all. Those things are the result of having a seat at the table and having a clear agenda. And so one of the things that became obvious this last week, and this has come up with conversations that I've had with Horace and with others, is that this is a pivotal time for us. with this level of representation that we have in New York City, in New York State, on the US national level, in the White House, and even, but not quite as much proportionally, but even in the Supreme Court. This is the time to sit down and develop a clear agenda. A clear agenda as to what it is that Caribbean Americans actually want. What policies do we want to advance that actually work in our favor, both domestically and internationally? And until we have that, the level of representation in all of these halls of power is merely symbolic. And we as people of color, and now I'm speaking even broader beyond the Caribbean American, have to advance beyond the stage of symbolism and tokenism. For too long, we have simply been sitting back, and every time that one of us breaks through the ceiling or breaks in the door, we say, yay, we have a first. This is 2023. Let's move beyond having a first and put in place policies that create floods of opportunities for all of us. So having said that, one of the things that I'm looking forward to working with many of you on is a coming together of all of these wonderful minds, coming together of all of these organizations, big and small, to actually sit down and develop an agenda for the Caribbean American community and beyond. Because whatever it is, if there's one thing we can learn from the history of Caribbean Americans, is that whatever it is that we do to advance ourselves, it advances others. Right? So yes, we want to have a coming together of minds, and please forgive me for the sweating. Right? Despite my tropical origins, I don't do well with heat. That's why I live in New York. It's alright, I have a pocket full of them. But I'm going to wrap it up by saying that we will be reaching out to you through our connections with Horace and with others to work on a coming together of minds, to sit together and at least begin the process of developing our yours. Oh, you can speak now. At this point in time, that's you. Bring your towel at this point. But yes, to put together an agenda, right? Because this year we went down to DC, and the first thing that I asked them, I said, okay, we're all going down to DC. How many of us are there? Oh, 150 of us from across the country, from every corner, California, from Boston, coming from Florida. Great, good. What are we going to tell them? Crickets. So next year, when we advance on DC, and it won't be 150 of us, it'll be 250 of us, it'll be 300 of us, or whatever number of us it is. The one thing that we do want to arrive with is something that is clearly articulated. Like, here's a 10-point. Here's a 20-point. Here's a 5-point, if that's all we got. But something that we want, because we can't expect the halls of power to respond to us if we are not in a position to articulate to them what it is that we want. Everyone, I want you to have a great evening. It's an honor to be here. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic on to
Thank you very much, Dr. Bramble. Now, I'm going to go off script a little bit. Can you take maybe one question? Does anyone have a question for Dr. Bramble? I'm going to have each speaker come up, and I'm going to have just kind of one question up each speaker, such that we can get some engagement. I don't want you to just be here sitting and listening. I'd love for some engagement. So, question for Dr. Bramble.
How important do you think the next generation, the youth international?
Oh, that's a beautiful question.
How important and what it is that you guys are doing? I know you guys are doing a lot.
Yeah.
I just finished a contract at Necker, your high school, junior high school, as an educator. I teach music, but how important do you think the next generation?
Oh, that was the other thing on there, but I decided not to talk about it because I was sweating. So one of the errors that was made, and the theme for this year, and I'm probably paraphrasing, and I'll probably mess it up, is but it involves us reflecting on our past and looking towards our future, right? So sort of a thankful for idea. And one of the lessons I think we have to learn from the generation of leaders who came before us, because we had some powerful leaders with great vision, very articulate and so on, and influential. But one of the biggest mistakes that they made is that they didn't put in place any plans for succession, right, or for continuity. And so I mentioned when I was describing the center that I said, hey, we developed this huge footprint, and then we had to shrink our footprint. And why did we shrink our footprint? Because the leadership did not effectively develop, nurture, and put in place who is supposed to follow them, right? And we see this in multiple Caribbean American organizations that they did great work in the 80s, they did great work in the 90s, and then whoever those leaders are, they moved on, and maybe the organization continued, but it certainly lost its luster, right, and lost its momentum. So to answer your question, I think it's absolutely vital that we work on developing the youth, right, and in multiple levels and multiple age groups. So for myself personally, I start working with young people like you. I used to be a high school educator, and I still continue to work with high school students, and to develop in them the skills and the knowledge and the desire to pick up the mantle wherever it is that I may drop it or we may drop it. And in the center itself, so we're actually starting next week. Every summer we run a summer institute, and this is a program that I developed about 3 years ago, and it's grown. They don't pay me. I gotta put that out there. This is voluntary. So every summer I take on, and I usually aim for 15. This year I ended up with 24. So I have 24 interns who are coming in to work with me over the summer. And the goal of our summer institute is for us to expose these young people to career opportunities. And Horace is big on STEM and STEAM. So we connect each of these students with faculty mentors who are doing research, and usually research in the community, so things that actually connect with the students, environmental research on education, things like that. And so we do that first to get them to think about their community differently, to look at their community differently, but also to get them to think about careers and opportunities and academics differently. The second goal is to expose them to special soft skills. Yeah, I see you, Horace. I'm going to wrap it up real quick. Is to expose them to new skills, right? And these skills involve technical skills around doing, what do you call it? What is the correct term for it? Technical, is that it? Okay, all right. So developing technical skills, whether it's doing streaming, doing video editing, learning how to develop websites, things of that nature, but also soft skills as well that serve them well in the future. So all of that to say that the youth are super important, and it's important that you not only work with young kids, but that you work with others and put others in place to carry on whatever it is that you do, because we all have to accept that we are finite. All right?
All right. How about another round of applause for Dr. Brown? I see a number of people standing by the door. If you guys could just come on in. It's a small, intimate city. Come on in. Come on in. Yeah, come on in. All right, so keep moving right along. Women creating change. Sharon Cyril Fairman. Sharon, come on up. A subject matter expert in workforce development and economic development. Sharon, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is so lovely to be in a room with all my people of color. 2 days ago, I was in a room with all white women, affluent white women, who, by the way, have set their agenda and want me to carry it. And my thing to them was, you know what? We have to bridge the gap. It can't be yours alone. So this is why I'm here talking to you all this afternoon. My name is Sharon Sewell Fairman. I am the president and CEO of Women Creating Change. I am 3 months in, but I can't say no to my friend Horace. And I just want to say, before I get into my little talk here, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. And thank you to Horace, who really, he is persistent with his vision. He's relentless, and he delivers on behalf of all of us. So I just want to say thank you. So with that, I hail from the island of Jamaica. Woo! How many Jamaicans are here? But we're one Caribbean, right? And the bottom line is, as we all know, in Jamaica, I grew up in a classism society. That shaped my values at a very early age. And that was for education, training, advocacy. And many of you all know that Jamaicans don't hold their tongue. So that's where my advocacy came in. Migrated to the United States, where I joined my grandmother and my mother. They were trailblazers. They were risk takers. Why? Because they wanted a better life for their family. But not only for their family, for generations to come, right? That's why we're all sitting in this room, right? And so fast forward, I went to college to become an accountant. And my mother, of course, as you all know from the Caribbean, you either become a lawyer, doctor, or an accountant.
Or an engineer.
Or engineer, right? And that's the only thing that they know, right? So I went to become an accountant. An internship changed my trajectory, and that's why I stand before you right now. I was introduced to a nonprofit organization that did advocacy in Albany, focused on workforce development. And so let me just fast forward to where I am right now. The bottom line is, for years, for over 30 years, I was the first to go to college, the first to work in my organization, the first to lead an organization with only 1 minute to think about whether I wanted to lead or not. But I took that step, right? And I'm here in front of you. I'm speaking to the women this evening because my goal, and I'm going to tell you about my organization in a minute. I know we have a few minutes. My goal is to educate, equip, and empower women and girls. Why? Because I spent years trying to find my voice, another few years trying to use my voice. And now I'm still trying to use my voice for influence. And let me tell you what, not only am I trying to use my voice, but I've joined this organization, Women Creating Change, to educate, to equip, to empower women and girls to find, use, and leverage their voice to address many of the inequities, many of the barriers that we face today, right? And so, WCC is a 108-year-old organization. It was started by white, affluent women who, after a fire in Lower Manhattan, where women were working at machines, and they locked women in, and there was a fire, and over 100 women perished. And so at that time, a few women came together, and they wanted to use their voice. Fast forward to now, 4 years ago, we shifted from a all-white organization to be more inclusive, to specifically focus on women of color and girls of color. And the bottom line is, we are here to make sure one of the things we need to do is educate ourselves. I often say we don't know what we don't know, right? The bottom line is, as we just heard, let me ask a question. And those of you who know, raise your hands, because those of you who don't know, I'm about to talk to you about that. And that is, how many people know the 3 branches of government? All right, that's awesome. And do you know, if you don't know, please know, because one of them is the judicial branch that just repealed Roe versus Wade and just repealed affirmative action, which means your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren are going to really have to work hard to get into the college that they want, right? So, secondly, in terms of civic education and civic engagement, do you know 33% of Americans do not know what the 3 levels, branches of government are? 33% of Americans. Let's move down to the city level. Let's talk about voting. Only 33% of folks voted in the last election, right? Not the primaries, the one before that. 11% of young adults, right? So what does that mean? When you say, you know what, I don't know who's on the ballot. When you say, and it has nothing to do with me, it means that it's your home, it's your community, it's your livelihood. Women only make 83%, 83 cents on the dollar compared to men. I'm not hating on men, but I'm just saying the World Economic Forum just said it's going to take 132 years for women to gain parity in terms of salaries. That's a lot of years. So I will wrap up by saying it is really important to become engaged in the civic process. Someone asked the question, what about the future generation? Educate them. So WCC, I'm willing to work and partner with CASONY to be able to provide education around the civic process, to provide internships and fellowships, to get young people exposed to government, to different branches of government. And we're also willing to participate and partner with you around setting an agenda, a clear agenda, not a fragmented agenda, to move things forward. Because other people have a voice. We may not have the money that those women on the Upper East Side have, but guess what? We have numbers. There is power in numbers, and there is power in knowing what you don't know. So let's continue to educate ourselves. And let's step up at the next election. Please, 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 don't say it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with us. And the last thing I will say, yesterday I went to a gala at the Everett, the Center for Law and Social Justice, and there were women who were retired, 89 years old, Dr. Una Clark, and others who were trailblazers, who are tired, who are retired. It's up to us, each and every person in this room, to continue to move things forward. So There is the Medgar Evers Center for Law and Social Justice as well. And there's so many other organizations. So let's come together as one Caribbean and use our voice to shape policy, to not only sit at the table, but to start to eradicate some of those inequities, especially for women. We have a legacy to leave behind. It's not about just us in this room. It's about our children's children's children, right? And so let's continue to increase our civic engagement and work with CASONY and get involved. CASONY has a women's group. Get involved. And you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn everywhere, wccny.org. Sign up, join, participate.
Thank you very much. Very powerful, very inspiring. All right, so we're going to keep the agenda moving along. Dr. Tiffany Oliki, CEO of Flawless Ribs, sourcing lead at Mount Sinai Hospital. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with everyone today. As African born, particularly a Nigerian, I feel very welcome here. This is amazing. When I think about the culture alignment, I think about the Caribbean a lot. I've got so many friends that when we're talking about raising kids, we have the same kind of foundation. When it comes to beliefs, norms, culture, we almost have the same thing because we talk a lot about all these things and it doesn't feel any different. The only thing is where on the map, Africa is different from where Caribbean is. So it's a great pleasure to be here. Usually, I do not like to talk about myself because I do not know how to give myself accolades. But there comes a time where you have to talk a little bit about yourself just to encourage some other people. I don't know how Sharon and we cannot be here, and women here will not take advantage of who Sharon is and who probably God has made me to be, because this is powerful. She was just saying everything from my script, so you have a camera in the phone, so, but I'm gonna find out later. I want to thank my sister. She came all the way from UK to stay with me, and I go to her usually for cybersecurity things because she's a guru in that area. Thank you for coming, Miriam. And as I look back, right, I look back into how did I get here? I ask myself, how did I get here? And in most events, people actually ask me, Tiffany, how did you get to where you are? I don't know how I got to where I am, but I know who brought me here. And I can only ascribe the praises back to God, right? That's the foundation of everything that I personally do. But one thing that I would say is that usually the journey of success is not that easy, but you will get to the destination. I'm born of all girls in our family, in a culture where the legacy of a business succession does not belong to a female child. It belongs to a male child. That's the culture in Nigeria, that when you have kids, once you don't have any boy, they're asking for a second wife to come and try to give you a son child. Then you ask for the third wife to give you and try for a son child. And if you don't have, what do you do? So I came from that background, but thank God for educated parents that I have. And my father redefined, let's give some men, very good men, a round of applause. My father redefined what the culture of his home would be. He couldn't change the culture of the whole Nigeria itself, but he changed the culture of his home, where he told us as girls that you can be anything whatsoever you want to be as long as you put your mind at it. And that is how we grew up. So, stepping quickly, within 3 minutes, I will be done. Thank you, sir. I'm gonna let my dad know. So I grew up in that environment, and I came here to the United States from Nigeria. I studied economics. From economics, I went for my MBA. From my MBA, I went for my PhD degree. And thank you, sir. So I went for my PhD under tension, the tension of family dynamics, the tension of raising young children. There were so many barriers. So many things would have made me not to do what I did eventually. But you know what? I used them as a stepping stone to become who God has made me to be. And the journey is not always easy, but there is a sure landing scheme that is always available to us as women, as men, as young kids, as adults, whoever we are. And I remember that when I just started my career, I started with Save the Children Federation. And when I started with Save the Children Federation, I became an advisor, supply chain, sourcing, strategic management. It was a double, triple role that I carried at Save the Children. One thing when I entered Save the Children, I don't know if this is recorded or edited, I don't really care, is that the diversity, DEI was terrible. We could sit in a boardroom with 20 chairs, and I would be the only black in leadership. And as I was about to leave Save the Children, and something, what legacy are you going to leave at Save the Children? And I wanted to leave a legacy of supplier diversity. There was nothing like that in Save the Children. And I started with DEI, with supplier diversity. And when they write the history of supplier diversity in Save the Children, my name is autographed on that. And that gives me that confidence that as Black people, people of color, we have the ability to do whatsoever that we put our mind to do. Fast forward, joining Mount Sinai as a business value analysis lead as well on a leadership seat, it could be uncomfortable. Certain good things are uncomfortable, even though they sound good and they look good. They're just so uncomfortable. And I started with Mount Sinai just less than a year ago. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. I'm looking for how people of color can have a voice. Not just have a voice, speak the voice. Be heard. There's a difference between you have a voice, you speak the voice, and you're heard. So the three has to align to make sense. And I started that with Save the Children as well. Now I'm going to go to my passion. My passion, there are not many. Diversity, equity, and inclusion everywhere I go has to stand out. I'm passionate about women and young girls like Sharon. I was looking at Sharon, where have you been? You know? I sit on the board of an organization called Zonta International. It's a global organization that works with women across the world. It's a fantastic organization that I've been on the board for the past, I want to really leave, but they keep putting me back for the past 6 years, which is an amazing organization that helps women as well. I'm going to tell you the reason why I'm telling you about all this achievement, right? So that you can tap into these resources. I don't care, you can tap. Whether I'm African, I'm Caribbean, as long as you can tap into resources, that is all that counts. I tried to tap into some resources as I was climbing, and to God be the glory, I did, and I tapped, I tapped into resources, and I did all I had to do. Now, out of all the courses that I teach in various universities, I'm also a syllabus consultant. I develop business management syllabus. And with St. John's, I teach advanced branding for international students from all over the world when they come for the exchange program. So I teach them advanced branding. I also teach operations management, and I also teach marketing and entrepreneurship and nonprofit management with ISM. Out of all the classes that I teach, something I'm so passionate about is branding. And the reason why is because branding is applicable to everything that we do. You have your personal brand identity. You have yours. I have mine. He has his. And as I lecture and I teach the student about branding, one thing comes to my mind. The Caribbean brand is real. The American brand is real. The African brand is real. The fusion of all this brand identity is what makes us who we are. The authentic us, the genuine us, the powerful us, the unstoppable us, the undeterred us. And that is what branding really does for us. So tonight, as I leave this mic and I drop it, I want to ask us that question. How well do you want to use your brand identity? You have your identity. Yours is different from mine. At times we confuse, right? We can align them, but let's keep aligning our brands. And like my grandmother would say, she said it in the local dialect, that together we stand, divided we fall. It's not possible for you to break a bunch of broom, but it's easy for you to break a stick of broom. The more we stay connected, the more we stay authentic with ourselves, the better we'll become. Please tap into all the resources tonight. And finally, Mr. Oris, I promise that I will support the work of CASONY. Finally, it's been running after me for years. And finally got me. I'll be supporting this work in any way I can. I promise for the first 3 people that would want to come for career growth in development, it's going to be free from Flawless and Reach on behalf of Flawless and Reach. So if you have 3 people you want to give me, don't worry, they could be female. They could be men too. But on behalf of Flawless and Reach, I promise to support CASONY the way I can. Therefore, there is no separation between us. This binds us together. And together we bind us, the world will be. Thank you so much.
Dr. Tiffany Aliki. Another round of applause, please. Very inspiring. So we're connected here, and we have a real treat, another treat for you. Mr. Ray Joseph, come on up. A theologian, a diplomat, a writer, an activist. We have a real stalwart in our community here. Dr. Joseph, please.
Well, thank you for the title, Doctor. I don't have it yet. I'll take it. Anyway, l'union fait la force. In unity, there is strength. And the Haitians who first came up with that seem to have forgotten it. And other people in the Caribbean seem to have forgotten it. That unity, that union fait la force, allowed us to have the first black republic in the world. The second independent nation in this hemisphere, second only to the United States of America. How did we do it? On the night of 14 September 1791, Duty Bookman, a fellow who came from Jamaica to Haiti, officiated at the ceremony, a ceremony that launched the movement of liberation. That was unity right back then. And during a 12-year guerrilla warfare, they fought against the strongest army of the time, the army of Napoleon Bonaparte. And on November 18, 1803, we defeated the biggest army there. And before we did that, on May 18, they had gotten together again, a meeting of unity at a place called Arcaye, where the blacks and the mulattoes were fighting here and there, got together. 6 months to the day, from May 18 to November 18, 1803, we defeated the strongest army there. And what we did, changed the course of history. Because the French so had to sell the Louisiana territory to the Americans. And they asked the Americans, please backdate it to April 30, 1803, so they will give the Haitians the credit of the May 18 unity. I bring back this historical story here just to say that long ago we had the idea of unity, which seems to be lost, and we have to reconquer that. Reconquer it. And it's been done here. I have to give you 2 examples of how it was done right here in Brooklyn. Many of you know of Una Clark, the first Caribbean woman to be elected to city council. Well, in 1992, she opened herself in a movement of unity that can join the Haitians. I know it because the paper I started with my brother, Haiti Observateur, in 1971, carried the fight for Nina Clark. Nina Clark has done much more. Look her up, check her out, and you see what she did. But one thing that she did that really is current today is when she saw how our vendors needed a market right here in Brooklyn because they were persecuted by the police. So she's the one who was the founder of the Flatbush Cape Market. And you know, that market stayed there, went down, up and down. And again, in 2015, when they were redoing it, launching it, they turned to another Caribbean. It was Roy Hastick. And Roy Hastick did a lot with the club to do something in the, what they call the Cape Flats, where they changed that community, and a market there. Today, no longer the Flatbush market, the central market of Brooklyn. All this, I say, just to point out that when you work in unity, you can do things. Nina Clark and Roy Hastick were not there for the inauguration of the new market in 2022 when Eric Adams was doing the inauguration. But their names were mentioned. And I say, the work what we do is going to be a legacy. It won't be around, but it will continue. So I challenge our leadership to continue the work of unity to bring the Caribbean American community together for greater things. Thank you.
So we're going to officially give him the title, Dr. Joseph. How about another round of applause, please? So this is where I have engagement. I want you to complete this sentence. Up, you mighty race. Please complete the sentence. Up, you mighty race. Say it again. Up, you mighty race. Okay, thank you. Words of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Up, you mighty race. You can accomplish what you will. We are blessed tonight. Our keynote speaker, Dr. Julius Garvey. Dr. Julius Garvey, the son of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, one of the greatest leaders this world has ever seen. Dr. Garvey.
Thank you very much, Jerry. It's very interesting and almost overwhelming, shall we say, to be in the presence of so many obviously talented Caribbean people. We're not just talented, but we also have presence. And following the first two speakers, since I came in, we're going to talk about branding and we're going to talk about unity. But I'd first I'd like to introduce you to my grandson, Chase Garvey. Who is carrying on the legacy of Marcus Garvey in his own way. Those of us from the Caribbean, we are very special We're special because we've gone through very special circumstances. We heard Dr. Joseph, I think I can use that title, tell us about the Haitian Revolution and the accomplishment of the first Black Republic, certainly in the hemisphere, and the accomplishments of people like Toussaint Louverture and John Jack Dessalines, etc. We had those successes against European hegemony, European imperialism, and also against European colonialism. We had Maroon Wars in Jamaica, we had them in Suriname, we had them in Barbados, etc., etc., etc. So we fought free from enslavement, and we fought free from colonization. And in doing that, I think that we were able to manifest our true spirit as human beings, our true spirit as Africans, but really the freedom of the human spirit to not only be free in that sense, but to manifest its full potential. And I think we've been hearing something about the potential of some of the Caribbean people here in Brooklyn. Of course, we can't forget Shirley Chisholm, who sort of predated Una Clark, and of course there's Yvette Clark, Roy Hastic, and so on. But there are many other Caribbean people throughout the United States who have made significant contributions, shall we say, to America. I had the privilege of being in Accra recently, and I was there at the invitation of the African Exim Bank. And what has been happening, well, let me just say right away that Mayor Moore Motley was there, and she, drove everybody crazy. Everybody loves her. I mean, she's such a dynamic figure. And anybody here from Barbados? No Bajans? Well, you should be proud of her. I wish we had her as the Prime Minister of Jamaica. I mean, she outshadowed everybody in the Caribbean. But she was there. Gonzalez was there from the Eastern Caribbean, and they both performed not just credibly, but at the highest level. And what that was all about is that the African Exim Bank has been a bank that's been involved with the development of Africa, and certainly laying the financial infrastructure for the development of Africa and the African continental free trade area. But it's also reached out to the Caribbean, and this has been again due to Mayor Moore Motley, Prime Minister Motley of Barbados. And they are now having a branch in Barbados with CARICOM. And they've dedicated $1.5 billion. I'll say that again. A billion with a B, not an M. $1.5 billion for the development of commerce and trade in the Caribbean and between the Caribbean and Africa. I say that to say that we have an identity. We have an identity as Caribbean people. We have an identity as CARICOM. And we have a broader identity, even as people from the lands that border, shall we say, the Caribbean. And that would include, of course, places like Brazil, again, places like Suriname and Panama, Costa Rica, and so on and so forth. So with that sort of vision, and of course, Gonzalez brought up that vision. I think being from the Eastern Caribbean is closer to Central America, et cetera. And that means that we have something like 500 million of us in that particular area who have the same background, the same experience of kidnapping, of dehumanization, of enslavement, of colonialism, but of fighting against oppression. And that gives us a certain personality, I think, in terms of, if you understand a bit about epigenetics, in terms of what genes it turns on and what genes it turns off. I think we're fighters. This lady is saying yes, and I can see she's a fighter. I think all of us here are fighters. And as you said, sir, we can accomplish what we will to revise the quotation of my father. But it is important that that deals, shall we say, the branding of the Caribbean. I'm very proud of my Caribbean identity. And I'm very proud of my Jamaican identity, but I'm very proud of my Caribbean identity. I'm very proud also of my African identity. And, you know, there is a coming together now of the Caribbean identity and the African identity. I mentioned something about the African Continental Free Trade Area, which they're talking about. You know, Africa has 1.2 billion people. They're trying to create a free trade area there. We of course, have CARICOM. I mentioned that there's a larger Caribbean area. Now, there's an attempt to link both the Caribbean area with Africa. And if we are able to do that, then we'll have, let's say, 1.5 billion people in terms of those of us who are of African ancestry. We'll have at least 1.5 billion people, which means that we'll have a quarter of the population of the world, of the earth. Now, if you can brand that and if you can unite that, then it will be a tremendous geopolitical force. We can sit at any table, Security Council, whatever. We don't need G7. We can do the BRICS, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, all of that is saying that there's work to be done. And this is what is important. And this is what I think is intrinsic in our heritage, that we are doers. We're thinkers and we're speakers, but we're also doers. And this is the next thing that we have to do. I don't know the numbers, let's say, in the Caribbean, but again, I know the numbers in Africa, that there are 100 million young people who do not have access to education on the African continent. And that's the worst in the world. I don't know what it is in the Caribbean, but I know it's significant. I don't have those numbers. Because you and I know, many, for example, Kingston is probably now one of the crime capitals of the world, Kingston, Jamaica. And the reason, of course, is because we have young people who are not educated, have no skills, and are out in the streets to survive however they can survive. And of course, one of the easiest things to do is to turn to crime. So I'm saying that to say that many, many things are happening. This is a crucial point in terms of the way in which the world is going. European, American hegemony is being, I wouldn't say attacked, I don't want to use that word, but it's almost over. It's being dissipated. And the multipolar world is arising. China is the largest economy in the world. India is the third largest economy in the world. And of course, if you look at population, China has probably 1.3 million, India has about 1.2 billion, I should say. So, these are significant countries in terms of their development, and of course in terms of numbers. And again, if we look at the BRICS countries, again, China, India, and if Africa gets its act together, we will be 3/4 of the population of the world. So we don't have to take a backseat to anybody. But this is where the geopolitics is going. But we have to be prepared. And the only way we can be prepared is through education and skills training. And this is what we have to do for the next generation. Because when you open up a free trade area, for example, again, let me just back up a little bit, because the payment system that is being used and propagated in Africa is a Pan-African payment system, whereby you can get around all the different currencies and use one currency in terms of a payment system. This is also now being brought to CARICOM. So CARICOM will also have a Pan-African payment system. That means that the CARICOM market will be able to trade with the African market with the same sort of currency. And we don't need to go through the dollar. So the dollar, again, also is going down. These changes require people with education and require people with skills to manage these opportunities. As you know, Africa is the richest country in the world. I don't need to go through all the different things. What? Say it again? Yeah, Africa is the richest continent in the world. But it's the poorest. It has the poorest people. Why is that? Because they're not educated and they don't have the right skills. Okay? And because of the long period of enslavement and colonialism and destruction of the governments, etc. And therefore they have not been able to put, the appropriate funding, etc. into education. I think I'm of the vintage of Dr. Joseph there, but I certainly remember India getting its independence in 1947. I was young. I won't say how young, but I'm younger than now. And one thing that Pandit Nehru did, he opened the schools, the universities. Everybody could get a free education. Okay, over time, you had a lot of people with bachelors and so on and so forth without jobs. But guess what? If you have an education, you can create your own job. And that is what has happened. And if you look around now, I'm the envy of the Indians. I mean, they're running Scotland, they're running England, you look at the World Bank and all these places, Indians are at the top. Okay? I envy them. We need to do that for our children. So one of the things that we're doing with CASONY, Marcus Garvey Institute for Human Development and CASONY, we're kind of joined at the hip. And education is our prerogative, particular STEM and skills training. And we want all of you who are here to climb on board. Understand she's a recruit, wonderful, wonderful recruit. And by the way, my grandson over there, you're going to brand him and you're going to show him what to do in terms of achieving success. Good, he's yours. But we really need to do that because it's not a joke. And if we as a people don't take this particular opportunity, we'll always be behind. I mean, and it's ridiculous as a Jamaican, as a Caribbean person, as an African, to have riches in the ground and you're not utilizing it to create prosperity for your people. Something is wrong with that. Something is wrong with that. All of us here have backbone. All of us here have intelligence. We can change that. We can change it tomorrow if we make the decision today to change that. We have all the tools. We have the resources. We have the brain. If we unite, we have the financing. So what would hold us back? Absolutely nothing can hold us back. I told you the imperial powers are going down. They're not strong enough to hold anybody back. They can't hold the Russians, they can't hold the Chinese, they can't hold the Indians. Huh? So how come they're going to hold us? So it's up to us to do in the present what needs to be done to create a future for our young people. So that's a challenge, and I hope that all of you join us, CASONY, Marcus Garvey Institute, in trying to create the platforms for the next generation that are needed. Thank you.
Words of Dr. Julius Garvey. So let me try this one more time. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. Thank you very much.
Up you mighty race.
Up you mighty race. Accomplish what you will.
There you go.
All right, we're getting ready to wrap it up. I really hope you've heard, you've taken to heart some of the messages that you've heard from our speakers this evening. As we're wrapping it up, I want to bring up another brother. Wilton, come on up. Yeah, so it's one of our brothers here. We've been attached to here for years. So, a few words.
Thank you, and it's such an honor to be here. So many beautiful people, and also recognizing the Caribbean. I'm very happy to know that CASONY is in great hands, and the work that they've been doing, that the board has been doing, especially also the founder, Mr. Horace Davis. Mr. Horace Davis, I've known for over 30 years. I remember going to high schools to talk to young people and to motivate them. And when Horace got up, they got all excited because not only is he a scholar, but he was a star football athlete. And those kids went crazy when they heard that. And I mean, and he's been motivating and inspiring young people for a long time. So he's an advocate of STEM education, and he's also bringing everyone together, bringing the Caribbean together. And we look represented today, this is a first announcement publicly that I'm making, the National Dominican Day Parade and the Queensboro President on July 20th is going to honor Mr. Horace Davis. And not only that, on August 11th, there'll be a gala with the President of the Dominican Republic, and he'll be honored with all these Dominican honorees. He's been adopted by Dominican Republic. And so you can see, he's bringing us together. And if you weren't so excited, August 13th, on Sunday, August 13th, along with other honorees, Mr. Horace Davis will be honored in the Avenue of the Americas. Horace, thank you for all you do. God bless you.
Jerry, just 1 second, because this is being streamed, and I just want to take 2 seconds to say hello to our dad, Mr. Woody Dorsey, Mr. Herman Dorsey, the man who has mentored the three of us. And without him, we would not be the men that we are today. And Woody, I hope you're out there. We love you, we appreciate you, we respect you, and we want you to know we're carrying on. And with that, I'm going to just ask Ms. Tanya to just come and close this out. We've got lots of food, we've got drinks. We want folks to really take some time to get to know some of the gems that's here in this room. Because this is not the start of an annual Caribbean month, Caribbean American month celebration. This is the start of something really special that's going to be sustained throughout the year as we do some really great things. Here you go, Tony.
Thank you. Unity, one Caribbean, one Africa. I love it. I met Horace at an event, and I can't even remember how the conversation started, but we started talking, and I mentioned to him about a breast cancer event that I was organizing. I'm a breast cancer survivor. And he took the time to listen to me, talking about the support and village that played a tremendous part with me being here today. And, you know, he was just on board. He listened, and he was excited. I did my event, and he was one of my sponsors and biggest supporter. And so we started talking about other things. Because I said, Horace, you know, we're Jamaicans. And it hurt my heart to see people are dying in our countries because they're poor. To be poor is a crime. And I feel the urge and the need to do something. I said, we're going to do like Obama. We're going to grassroot it. We're going to start with one person until we can help many others. And this is not just about females, it's about men too, because men do have breast cancer. And the whole purpose is to help people in the Caribbean and Africa. Because people are just dying because they can't even afford to go and do a test. We have a lady who passed away recently, stage 4, breast cancer, and she was a recipient of the funds that we made. And I live with her last words. Miss Tanya, I don't want to die, but I'm in so much pain and I don't feel good. She called me every other day, and I realized 3-4 days passed, I didn't hear from her. Tried calling her, couldn't get her. I spoke to her son a week ago, and it was confirmed. I felt it in my heart. And I called Horace and I said, she has passed. But I also feel good within myself that through us, the village, she passed away with hope. She knew she was not alone. And that is our purpose. And so we started talking about many other things. Okay, we've got to save the world now, Horace. We talk about our community and just our observation. And one of the observations is we have so many different Caribbean organizations and African organizations, and you're doing stuff and nobody knows what the other is doing. It takes a team to make a dream. Together, we're stronger. And so that's what this is about, uniting. For everyone to come together and, share their stories. Express what you're doing in your organization, in your community, so we can come together and help each other. Because that's the only way. That's what the white man does. Generational wealth. They look out for their children. They come together. And it's not even just that. It's all other races, I find. So we need to do the same. That's the only way we can win. We are smart. We are great. We are powerful. As Dr. Garvey said, Africa is the richest continent in the world, but yet the poorest. Why? Unity. There's a lack of unity. And, this is just the beginning. I want to say thank you to Horace. Trust me, we bother each other. We think of things and we call each other. And, we're just like, this is the start. So I'm very happy that you all are here today because so many other things are going on. And I said to Horace, well, we're just having this Caribbean event at Gracie Mansion, and this person is doing this. Nobody's going to show up. But we said, you know what? If it's 2 people, it's going to happen. And I am just so very happy to see the turnout. I'm very honored to be in the room with all you people because we also believe in quality over quantity. Everybody can knock the drum. Not everybody can really play the tune. And I feel like we have a room full of people that can really play the tune and make a difference. And that's what we're about. Let's share. Let's unite. Let's come together. Let's help each other. Because then we win. I want to say thank you to Center for Fiction, who believe in me. And, they always say, Tanya, anything you bring to the table, we endorse. This is an amazing organization. It's been around for a long time. I've, been here 3 years. I as a part of their family. And, they are always supportive in whatever I do. And my mission is to bring our people together. We have a platform. We have an amazing platform. Amazing people, great people come through these doors. I mean, Stephen King has been here quite a few times. Like, sometimes I'm here and I'm just like, oh my God. But that's what this is. And I want you to be a part of this family. Members, we get discounts and all this kind of stuff. And we have lots more to do. I am going to use this platform to empower and help and lift our people up, right? Because they try to fight us in every way. Just, since we started, we got a complaint about our music. Yes, from one person who's across the street. And I almost burst a blood vessel because I realized what she was saying was, yeah, the music is a little loud, but it wasn't really about the loudness. It was about the type of music. Okay, so I was happy that I was with two other people from the organization who believed in me and was able to hold me back because I really almost burst a blood vessel and then, I said, that's the purpose. So we will have many more of these kinds of music and these kinds of people. Again, thank you. We have enough food. Holy food. We have the bars, drink, laugh, talk, share, be merry, connect. Thank you. I'm sorry. I have to say thank you to Miss Keisha Martin, who, did her prayers and started out her day with the amazing. I'm also her manager. So if you do need to book her for anything, please, she won't disappoint you. Reach out, okay? And Fritz McClellan. I have not seen this gentleman in a long time. He was one of my mentors. A great man. Thank you.
Very proud.
I'm very happy to see you. Thank you.
Enjoy the space. Oh, by the way, yeah, one thing just to remind you, we just want to make sure that we have your contact information. And for those who have ideas and thoughts, this is the time to share them. I will say one thing, on many of the tables, you see the mission of the organization, and there's a QR code. As a nonprofit, we accept donations, and we need donations to keep this thing going. So anything, $1, $5, $10, anything is appreciated. But what's more important than anything else is your presence, your participation, your involvement and engagement in all that we've done, all that we're doing, and all that we'll accomplish in the future. Thanks so much. Special rounds of applause for the speakers. Our leaders. Thank you. Enjoy.
It's right here.
Takes you to the website.
I will.